What are the odds we see 2 championships in the same years? Well, the Nuggets and the Avs are both fighting for a championship right now. They're both in a playoff window, and we talk about their possible path to the championship. That and a lot more coming up next on the Denver Sports Podcast. What's up, everyone? Welcome in live from the Toyota Lounge. It's the Denver Sports Podcast, a Tuesday edition here of the show, and it is a beautiful day. I went golfing yesterday in the afternoon. It was a little windy, little kind of cloudy, kind of felt like I had thought it was, but my meteorologist buddy told me it was supposed to be a nice day, and it ended up being a little dicey. Today looks absolutely perfect to get outside and golf.
It does. Yeah, I don't trust meteorologists. I mean, I don't trust a lot of people.
Fair. That is a shady. I mean, if you can make your career off talking about the weather,
exactly.
Like, what are you doing? I mean, we talk about sports.
I do think like it is interesting. Like, I do like to see like the charts of like here's how the storm is. And it's like, oh, there's a mountain, so it's gonna like do this.
You also have to be like kind of smart to actually go into meteorology. Like my buddy has taken like advanced calculus and all these barometric pressure surveys.
Yeah.
It's a nerd's world for sure.
I remember, so when I was getting my economics degree,
you're kind of a nerd too.
Double major with journalism, so real nerd.
But huge nerd.
Back in the day, one of the things one of the professors said was economics is really, really good at interpreting things that happened in the past, but it isn't always great at like predicting what's going to happen in the future. Like, it's good for like tracking, like, oh, this happened, then this happened.
So you can't tell me the price of eggs in 2 weeks.
You could say, like, in the past, these things have happened, and this was the most likely outcome. And so there's those sorts of, but it's similar with the meteorology, where it's like, look at the storm, it's going through here, and that's why we think it's going to go this way. And it's like, yeah, but your batting average is only so much better than. That's
an interesting metaphor when it comes to sports and what we do in sports, because you're right. Like, I can tell you a lot about how bad the Rockies have been over the last 10 years. Can't really tell you how good they're going to be or bad they're going to be. Coming next year. We really have no idea.
The bullpen's been an issue. Like the starters, like there's not much base running in the past. I'm not sure if their stats to
no,
back
the base
that
running
up.
looks better this year.
Yeah, but it's like, does that mean it's going to change or get better?
Sure.
Yeah,
Same question could be asked for the Avs and the Nuggets.
Yep.
Is it too much to ask for a championship for both teams this year? Well, my initial answer to that is absolutely not, and I think there is an absolute chance that both of these teams can win a championship. And I see Jason was already in the chat, saying that we're leaning more towards the Avs. I agree with you, Jason. As of recently, the Avs do look more like the Stanley Cup contending team out of the two. But there's been games throughout this year with the Nuggets where they've looked better than OKC. They've looked better than the best teams. They've looked better than the Celtics. They've looked better than the best teams in the NBA. It's just the consistency with the Nuggets that continues to be the biggest issue. And so, yes, if you're asking on paper, like, who's the closest to a championship, it's definitely going to be the Avs. But I still think we live in a world. I know people are kind of starting to check out on the Nuggets just because I think the Nuggets are pissing a lot of people off right now. But I want to remind folks, like, this is a team that has the best player in the world on the team. You've got one of the better shooters in basketball when he's hot in Jamal Murray. You've got Aaron Gordon, who's been electric when he's healthy. I don't think you count the Nuggets out yet, man.
Yeah, you don't count them out, but you do have to realize, like, when the Nuggets won a championship the first time, you knew months before the season was over that, like, this team is incredible. Like,
true.
I can't see them losing.
They lost like the last
they
month
cold, but even
of
then,
the year,
like,
and you still were like, they're great. Yeah.
And like when the Avs won the title, that whole season, you're just like, oh, yep, they put up 7 again. Like this team is incredible. And as those, I guess the Broncos that was the other championship that I was alive for. Or was old enough to understand. And maybe that one didn't feel quite as inevitable, but it was pretty close because every week you saw that defense just make crazy plays and you knew it was special. But for the most part, when I've seen a championship, it's been pretty obvious at this point that like, hey, it's at worst, it's like a toss-up here.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, has there ever been a year in Colorado sports, any sport, Rockies? I mean, all the Rockies have never won a World Series, but like when the Rockies were successful, or the Nuggets, or the Avs, or the Broncos, like, has there ever been a year where you didn't really think, this year isn't really our year, or whatever, and then all of a sudden, come playoffs, you're like, oh my God, this team's going to win a championship, and then they go and win it all. The Rockies actually might be the best example of that because they were kind of underrated and they just went on a tear at the end of their reign.
And I want to say, so there was the streak at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 16 games, including
it was pretty incredible.
Including the game 163 to get in. And so even though, a month before the season ended, for example, you thought like they're out of it. Yeah. They aren't even going to get to the playoffs. It is easier when the playoffs start to say, hey, we just ripped off 16 straight wins. Like, we're hot right now. The sky's kind of the limit. Yeah. And so I wouldn't say that follows the rule of like the Nuggets and Avs championships, but I would say that it is a very unique situation. And, 10 games left for the Nuggets. If they rip off 10 straight wins, the vibes are going to be a little different.
Well, I will say, and this is part of the dynamic of the conversation I want to have here is who needs to go on a run this last part of the season more? Does it need to be the Avs or does it need to be the Nuggets? And I'll make a case for the Avs here in just a moment. But this is that weird time of the year where you're starting to prepare for the playoffs. So you start to have this idea of like, okay, both of our teams are making it to the postseason. It's not really a world in which the Nuggets and the Avs don't make the playoffs. But how do you best set yourself up for that? If you're the Nuggets, do you care too much about wins and losses right now as long as you get into the playoffs? Do you care too much about seeding as long as you have the load management to keep your players healthy so that Jokic, AG, Westbrook, like all your guys are just perfectly healthy come postseason? Do you feel like that's kind of where the Nuggets are at right now, or are you still concerned about making sure they get good seeding?
I am very concerned about the seeding. Very, very concerned. As it stands now, you're only a game and a half out of the 2 seed, which would be great. More importantly, though, you're only a game out of the 4 seed. And running into the Thunder in the second round would not be any fun at all.
No.
I think that would be a recipe to probably leave the playoffs in the second round. So staying at least in the 3rd seed, which is going to be tough with 2 teams just 1 game behind you with 10 to play. That is the priority. If you can get up to 2 and flip that home court advantage with the Rockets in the second round, that could be the difference in that series. I'm not sure if it's still true. Oh, no, that was the Avs. But then on top of that, the Nuggets are only 4 games out of the play-in right now.
Yeah.
So if the Nuggets go 5-5 down the stretch, and say there are a couple teams tied there, say Clippers or Timberwolves go 9-1 in the final 10 games, the Nuggets could still go down all the way to the play-in, which would be
that'd be insane,
devastating. So to me, it's you need every single win at this point.
Well, I want to hear from you guys in the chat too. We are going to be doing a mailbag portion of the show coming up in the next segment. We're going to be answering some fan questions. So if you've got questions for us, sports, non-sports, whatever you want, throw them our way because we'll get to that as this show goes on. I do think. I wanted to ask you because, you follow all of our sports. You're a big Denver sports fan.
Yes.
What's gone wrong for the Nuggets this year? Because I even see in the chat, Embo is talking about not this year. Nuggets just don't have it this year. He's not alone. And I've seen other people say it. Hell, I've even seen some of our Nuggets guys having that sentiment. What's changed this year? Because you still have the best basketball player in the world on your team. As a team, you're relatively healthy. You haven't lost someone completely. What's different?
There are a lot of different things. There's some that are pretty big picture. There are some that are pretty small. Like, for example, they're just getting beat off of dribble drives. Like, as simple as they are not guarding the guy they're supposed to guard one-on-one. And because of that, somebody has to help, which leaves an open 3-point shooter. And then you wind up with one of the worst 3-point defenses in the league. And I think that there's a lot of attention on the symptom, which is the bad 3-point defense, the fact that other teams are hitting so many of their 3-pointers. Instead of the fact that what's creating it is, first off, that they're getting beaten off the dribble, which means someone needs to help. And then second of all, they're so used to everybody getting beaten off the dribble that they're helping before they even have to.
Yeah.
Because so you can get into those details. I would even start bigger picture, though, and say you can't blame them for what they've done with asset resources for the most part. There are some things, giving up the 2 second-round picks for Reggie Jackson last year, leaving you with only 1 second-round pick. That's all you have to trade in this year from a draft perspective. And it's a 2031 second-round pick. You can't trade first. You can't trade any seconds before then. That's it. That meant that they couldn't add one more piece at the deadline. There has been some of those little things, but you have to remember the reason they got into this kind of draft pick hell was because of the trade for Aaron Gordon, which worked out. But you had to give up some first round picks to make that happen, and it was the correct move. Still, though, you wound up in this situation where you didn't have the assets to trade. The free agent signings with Dario Saric, for being the best example, just didn't work out. And so you're just stuck as a thin basketball team.
Yeah.
And when KCP leaves because they made the decision to choose flexibility over, kind of being locked into this group, they chose the flexibility. It meant that Christian Brown is no longer on the bench. He's in your starting lineup. And so when you need 3 guys off the bench, and you used to have, it used to be Christian Brown, Bruce Brown, and then rotate, even Jeff Green would be a nice addition as it stands now. Now you're saying like, oh, those 3 are out of that part. But you could still work in like, can Zeke Naji do it? Can Peyton Watson do it? You have Russ and what he brings to the table. But it's just been all these things that built toward them being a pretty thin basketball team. And then there's the effort issue, which has gotten better. It looked good the last 2 games, but it is concerning.
I think the toughest part for me and what looks different this year than it did in the year that the Nuggets obviously won the championship, or even some of the years around that, is this team feels fragile to me.
Yes.
And I don't just mean from a physical standpoint, like, oh, they're going to get hurt, whatever. But it feels like they don't have the ability to push through adversity, or if they experience adversity, it just completely throws them off. You lose Jamal Murray for a game. You lose Aaron Gordon for a game. I've heard so many people say, and I don't disagree with this at all, if Aaron Gordon is not on your roster, or not playing, not in your starting lineup when you are going into the playoffs, the Nuggets are not going to make it past the first round. That's, to me, telling of a team that doesn't have the depth, doesn't have the consistency to battle through adversity, versus a team like OKC, for example, that just has so much depth that, if one guy gets hurt, you feel like there's 5 other guys who can step in. The Nuggets, when they were a championship team, you just rattled off like 3 or 4 names that you were like, even at worst, you're looking at guys who come out and get good minutes, and your depth is there. I mean, Strother's hurt right now. Like, Zeke Naji's been up and down. Like, you just don't know what the back end of the Nuggets is going to look like day in and day out. So I feel like that part of it is tough for Nuggets fans, because you just see that and you're like, I just don't trust it. I don't trust them to be able to be successful long term. Again, this is still a team that could go in and win the NBA Finals, and you'd say, okay, like, they've got the pieces for that. But it feels more like an uphill battle, and every single thing has to go right for it to work.
Yeah, and I mean, it does help that in the playoffs the bench matters less. Like that's a thing that happens when you get to that point. And so a team like the Thunder, who's just rotating everybody in, everybody stays fresh because you got so many different guys. There's 10 guys who can contribute. It isn't as valuable when you get to that point. And if you just want to do some simple math, if you wanted to just have a 6-man rotation, the starting 5 and Russ, you'd be asking all of those guys to play 40 minutes a game, which is too much. But it does show you kind of how close you can get to, like, maybe you throw Peyton Watson in there for another 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're down to 38 a game for those 6, 10 minutes for him, and you could kind of get by. It's just getting through the season where you have to worry about, we have to keep Joker fresh. We have to keep Jamal fresh. We have to keep...
I feel like you're walking on eggshells with your games.
And part of that is just regular season basketball. You won't find anybody who's playing 37 minutes a night, because that's just not a smart way to use your players. It's not... Allen Iverson isn't out there anymore.
Yeah, but that's the difference between a championship team and a playoff team that gets bounced in the first or second round, is how much depth can you throw out there. And I will say, I mean, I do think, again, the Nuggets have what it takes. It just feels like things have to align perfectly. The stars have to be in the exact place for us. But the Nuggets, out of all of our teams, and I asked this to Brendan Vogt 2 weeks ago when we were doing this show together, and I had said, the Nuggets, out of all of our team, which of our teams in Colorado feels like, the vibes of the fan base is determined, most significantly based off the wins and losses? And we both agreed the Nuggets 100% feel like when they're winning, they're unstoppable. And when they're losing, are we even going to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
And so I think we have to take that into consideration, is that this team has severe highs and severe lows. They went, 2-2 against the Thunder this year.
Exactly.
They can play well against the good teams. I think we're holding out for a moment.
Yeah.
I still think there's a world in which the Nuggets can get it done.
I think, again, it's all about the path, and that's what Nikola said before the last the championship run. Somebody asked him, do you think you guys can win it this year? And he said, depends on how we match up. Because that's the way NBA playoffs go. The Timberwolves, for all the weird things that have happened to them, they were built specifically to stop the Nuggets. And that's why they had Karl-Anthony Towns. They traded for Rudy Gobert. They get all this length and speed and athleticism to kind of like take away passing lanes. And now things have changed with Karl-Anthony Towns gone. But we've seen this season that that's a team that still really causes trouble for the Nuggets because they're still just that long and athletic. And, that's just not the way the Nuggets are built. And so they can just overwhelm the Nuggets. Who knows if they make the playoffs. They're the third team in the play-in right now. But if you can get through, dodge them in the first round and take on, whichever play-in team, really, even the Warriors, who are the 6th seed, you should be able to get out of that. Second round, you hit the Rockets. They can beat the Rockets. We saw just a couple days they can beat the Rockets. They beat the Rockets over and over again. No offense to Dion over there. And then you have to hit the Thunder in the finals, and you hope somebody has upset them, because against just about anybody else, I like the Nuggets' chances. It's just that the Thunder might be so overwhelming. That's the team that kind of feels like the Nuggets did a couple years ago. So the path is right there. It's just the margin for error is so much slimmer than it has been in the past, and it's been tough to see the vision because there are too many nights where they just are not themselves.
Yeah, well, I will say there is about a quarter of the people working at this company that have made a career off of not betting against Nikola Jokic.
True.
And so I'm gonna join them by saying, don't count out the Nuggets because you have the best player in the world on your team. I do want to switch gears though and talk about our other team here, the Colorado Avalanche, in just a moment, because I think they're in a crucial time right now where they have some big games coming up, and I'll talk about why it's even more important for them to go on a run than it is for the Nuggets when we come back from this next break. All right, got to give a shout out to our friends right now over at Toyota. Toyota is the official vehicle of DNVR, and they have been in my DNA when it comes to car ownership since I started driving. I've been kicking around a Toyota for years now, which, I haven't been driving for that long. I'm only 27, but, it's been a while, about a decade that I've been driving a couple Toyotas, and I know my next car, and probably the cars for the rest of my life, are going to be Toyotas. You can go high-end Toyotas, get a nice Tacoma or a Tundra. I know Spencer has the Tundra. You can go with the 4Runner, which are incredible, or you can even go kind of middle of the line, Camry or RAV4, whichever way you want to go. There's really no way to go wrong. They have Toyotas within your different price ranges. They've got 4-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, SUVs, sedans, hybrids. They've got so many options. It's the reason why Toyota is such a well-known brand, and they last forever. So make sure you check out Toyota. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, and Stevenson's Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson's Toyota West in Lakewood. They are the official vehicle of DNVR. Also got to give some love to our friends over at Shady Rays, because as we were saying when we opened up the show, it is bright as hell outside, guys. You walk outside, you're reminded of where we live. We live in a place where there's, 500 days of sun every single year, something like that. The math might be a little off there, but it's a lot of sun. It's a lot of sun that we get here, even in the middle of winter. 365 days, 500, it's all the same. Exactly. A lot of sun is what we have here in Colorado. And so you got to make sure you're prepared for that. Pick up some Shady Rays. They are the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. They're incredible. I use their polarized sunglasses when I go fishing, because if you didn't know this, you can actually see when you're wearing polarized sunglasses, you can see through the water and see the little fishies swimming around. So if you're trying to catch fishies, that's the way to do it. Shady Rays has me covered for that. So exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deals of the season. Head to shadyrays.com. Use code DNVR for 35% off those polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself those shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. It is fishing season, man. One of my dreams when I was starting out covering the Rockies, which was like 6 months ago, was Charlie Blackmon was still on the team, and if you know Charlie Blackmon, you know he's a big time fisherman. And when he went to retire, one of my dreams was to be like, and I guess it's still on the table, but to go fishing with Charlie Blackmon here in Colorado and do like an interview with him, like to stand out there, probably bring RG along, and just talk baseball, talk life while fishing. I feel like that would be electric.
Oh yeah. I mean, that is absolutely.
He seems like such a good hang too. Like
Totally.
he seems like such a chill dude.
Totally.
Go fishing, just hang out. I mean, I will say we're really blessed with a lot of seemingly cool guys. I mean, you get to cover Bo Nix,
Yep.
Pat Surtain, who's been on the show with the Broncos. Like there's some guys on this. I mean, you look around the league and you see players that you're like, God, that dude just looks like such a head case. Like I'm just so glad we don't have that guy on our team.
There's
anymore.
a lot of like when I see sometimes there's like NBA players, NFL players who like dress super weird.
Yeah,
like they'll do like I'm not wearing a shirt under my jacket today. Or like
Sure.
Matt Collins always showing up.
Matt Collins, that's the guy I was thinking of.
Yeah, you see that guy and you're just like, oh, it could be a nightmare to interview.
It
like
could be.
I don't
Or it
know
could
for
be
sure.
electric. I mean, it's 50-50.
But sometimes you see those guys and you can look and you're just like, oh, you're insane. And the Broncos don't have any of those.
Who's the most beloved player on the Broncos? Is it Bo Nix? I mean, he's obviously
Bo.
made that jump in the first year.
Otherwise, it would be Pat. But I think rookie quarterback. Everybody loves quarterbacks. In Denver.
I mean, I feel like within the clubhouse, would it be what, like Cortland Sutton would be up there on that list? He seems like a guy that's pretty high up there.
Yeah,
Singleton. Yep. I forgot about him because he was hurt last year. Bowles is Garrett Bowles. He seems like a guy within the line. Within the linemen.
He's a weird guy, but everybody likes him.
But kind of one of those guys that like everyone like a Jameis Winston type of weird, where like he's weird, but everyone kind of gets around him. Yeah. I mean, Russell Wilson was that way for the Broncos.
Exactly.
Like the players all loved Russell Wilson. It was just he wasn't good when he was over with the Broncos.
Yeah.
Well, bringing it back into the conversation of, is there a world in which we have 2 championships in Colorado here this year? We already talked about the Nuggets and whether or not they're in a position to be a championship team. We both agreed. They are very much in a position to be a championship team. They just have to have the stars align. Hank was of the mindset that, the Nuggets obviously need to go on a bit of a run. I don't disagree with you, but I will go a step further and say I think this is even more important of a time for the Colorado Avalanche to go on a run right now, because if you break it down, okay, so the Avs are, 5 points behind Dallas right now? You got 11 regular season games remaining in the season, which is
they have 12.
Crazy to me. Who?
The Stars.
The Stars have 12.
They have that extra one.
They do have the extra one. Crazy that there's only 11 NHL games left. 3 of the games that you're playing, you're playing 4 home games for the Avs starting tonight against Detroit. 3 of those teams are teams in the Western Conference.
Yep.
And again, you're 5 points back from Dallas. You're playing Detroit tonight. Like if you're going to go on a run, and I think J. Mike said this in his newsletter this morning, this is the best time of year for the Avs to go on a run. If you can pick up some points, if you can close the gap or even overtake the Stars, in these next few days at home against some rivalry teams in the Western Conference, you're setting yourself up huge going into that opening round series against the Stars. Home field advantage. You're in a good spot.
And I would say they are running. I think that's the fun part about this is in the past 12 games, they've won 10. And one of those losses was in a shootout. So they're flying. I think that's why it's so easy to be confident in the Avs right now is you just turn them on every night and you're like, holy cow. Like those moves they made at the deadline, unbelievable. Like flipping Mikko Rantanen for Marty Necas, and all of a sudden Necas has more points than Mikko does. Like there are so many of moves that they've made this year that put them in this situation.
Blackwood and Wedgwood, goalie situation, yeah.
They look like the best team in hockey. Did you know that it's been more than 2 months since they lost a game at home?
No, I did not know that.
No, January 22nd was the last time they lost a home game. They're on fire. You watch, again, tonight I'm going to the game against the Red Wings. If they give up 20 shots to the Red Wings, I'm going to be shocked.
Yeah.
Because they just don't do that anymore. They just do not let the other team shut the puck at the goal, which is kind of totally different than the formula for winning last time. But I don't know how you can look at what this team has done in the past, we'll just say 2 months since they've been undefeated at home and say there's any team in hockey that should beat them. Yeah.
I mean, not to derail us too much, but is a shootout victory on home ice the most electric way to end a game in any sport?
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah. I also think the Avs have had some of those buzzer beaters. Like there was one playoff. When was that? That would have been during COVID, I believe. I can't remember who they were playing. But was it Dallas? Or the score with 0.3 seconds on the clock to win?
Yes, yeah.
The buzzer beater is
Gives you
nice, but
chills.
shootout is great too.
Yeah.
Also, playoff buzzer beater makes it a little unfair.
I like if you're ranking like just ways to win a sporting event, it's got to go shootout goal to win for me.
Okay.
Close
beater, yeah.
behind that is buzzer beater. I think so I'm going to go walk off home run above buzzer beater. And I'm a baseball
That is
guy,
nice.
so but like don't get me wrong, buzzer beaters are incredible, but you know, I mean, a Rocktober walk off home run would hit like nothing else.
Totally.
Like nothing else.
I'd throw Hail Mary in there too.
Hail Marys.
Hail Marys are
like
pretty
the Minneapolis Miracle, those
Yep.
types of
Yeah,
A what?
It can be.
walk-off field goals can be.
It's lower on the list, but it is.
It is. I was gonna say because like if
If
you're
it's a
looking
long
at,
one.
if you're looking at like top tier ways to win a game, though, walk-off field goals fun. But you, the way I see it is like you kind of know it's about to go down right there. You know,
Yeah.
like there. Whereas like a walk-off home run is just such a surprise, right?
Yep.
Buzzer beater can also be such a surprise sometimes, where you're just like, oh my god, you got 2 seconds left. Like someone's got to throw it up.
Yep.
And he just hucks it up in the air. It's electric. Anyways, getting back to what you were saying, I think that's the biggest. That's the biggest difference between the Nuggets and the Avs is the Nuggets. Excuse me, the Avs went out and filled their gaps where they recognized there were spots on their team that they were missing out, whether it be their goalie situation at the beginning of the year, or the Mikko Rantanen situation was a little bit different, but they still got a good return for Rantanen. You know, I mean, you still feel good about that in the end. It was just unfortunate that it went down the way that it did. But I think the Avs feel so much more resilient. And maybe that's the word I should have used when we were talking about the Nuggets. Like, the Avs feel so much more resilient than the Nuggets in the sense that, I mean, you've looked at injuries this year. You had Nichushkin missing chunks of the season. You obviously don't have Landeskog back, who that's a whole other story.
He'll be here.
He might be.
He will be.
Like, you still are missing those guys. And yes, you have the best player on the ice in hockey right now, Nathan MacKinnon. You've got some incredible, backups to McKinnon and Makar. And, I mean, you've got other players that are great too. But it just feels like the resiliency is there for the Avs in a deeper level than the Nuggets have it. And that, to me, is what I think everyone feels more confident in the Avs this year than the Nuggets, because it just feels like the stars don't even have to align perfectly. The Avs can still walk away, 5 out of 7 in a series, even if they don't have Landeskog, even if Nichushkin wasn't there. Like they'd be able to get it done.
Yeah, no, and they were able to just totally rebuild their team. And that's where, again, the Avs were stale. Like the Avs, as they started the season, were not going to be good enough to compete for a Stanley Cup. Like that's just the situation they were in. But then they're willing to trade Justus Annunen and a 6th for Scott Wedgwood, which again for a backup goalie, it's a hefty little price. You trade you trade Georgi Kovalenko, one of your top prospects, a 2nd and a 5th for Mackenzie Blackwood, Giovanni Smith, and a 5th. So there's another 2nd round pick that's off the board on top of a prospect. You get close to the trade deadline. Obviously, there's the Mikko Rantanen trade, which is the one where you're like splitting a good player for assets, a younger forward. You get the 2nd round pick and all that sort of stuff. But then they get right back in there. You get Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, Nicholas Kemp. So 2 guys who are going to be a part of your team in these playoffs for Juuso Parson, who probably wasn't, Calvin DeHaan, who probably would, and a 2nd and a 4th. So there goes even more picks that you're just lighting on fire to build this team. Charlie Coyle, you trade Middlestat and a 2nd for him. So there goes that. Eric Johnson, you trade somebody who probably would never play for you again for him. You get
good vibes.
But just over and over, and you look at all of the assets that they spent to be able to build this team to this point. The Nuggets just weren't capable of that.
Yeah.
The Nuggets didn't have the assets to trade. Like what they could have done is they could have traded Michael Porter Jr. And maybe you could call that somewhat of like a Mikko Rantanen type trade. Bottom line is Mikko Rantanen's a lot better. And when you trade Michael Porter Jr., you're probably not getting another good player and a pick on top of that. But just say that you did, then maybe you could flip that pick for something else. But you were not able to go to this extent. And more likely you're trying to trade MPJ and some other depth, some prospects, whatever you want to call Peyton Watson and that crew, to try to get even better. So the Nuggets just didn't have the chance to do what the Avs did this year. And credit to the Avs for hitting on basically every one of these moves and now being in the situation where, hey, I'm keeping my schedule free in June because I think they're still going to be playing.
Yeah, well, Jonathan has a good question that I want to get on when we come back in the chat that is in the same line of what you're just talking about. And I'll share some thoughts on basically what we think the Nuggets are going to do if they don't win a championship this year and how they handle that. We'll get to that in just a moment. All right, you know, it's the best time of year right now. It's summer. It's nice outside. The weather's great. And that means it's Volo sports time. It's the time of year where you can get outside and go compete, have fun, meet new people. I mean, if you're not familiar with Volo, you got to figure it out because Volo is incredible here in Colorado. Have you done Volo last year? Did you do a bunch of their leagues? Okay, you Voloed once.
Yes, I was a single Voloer. But again, I had friends who wanted to start a team, a kickball team last year, and then we just never got it off the ground.
I have some incredible memories, and if you guys aren't familiar, Volo is basically an adult sport league where you can just play a bunch of different games, and it's a ton of fun. I did beer in hand kickball. That was my go-to, and I have this vivid memory. It was dumping rain, and we all had these beers in our hands, and you're running around. You're trying not to spill your beer as you're playing. And Lindsay Spano was playing at the time, and if you know Lindsay, you know how freaking intense she is, and she's like plowing through people with their beers. It was electric, dude. It was so much fun. I know I'm gonna be at Coors Field a bunch this year for the Rockies, but I'm gonna be out at Volo doing some pickup games, and that's the cool thing about it. You don't have to like commit to being fully on a team or in a league. Like you can also just be a pickup player. You meet new people, you stay active. It's just a great way to hang out. So you can sign up as a free agent, like I was saying, small group or full team, and all availability levels. All ability levels. My God, I can't read today. All ability levels and backgrounds are welcome to join. Use code DNVR10 for $10 off any Volo Denver league. Sorry, Volo. Also got to give a shout out to our friends over at Bet365 because we don't do ordinary, and this is an incredible time of year to be betting. I mean, there's never a bad time of year to be betting, especially with Bet365, because I mean, it's electric to be going a little deeper on every single sport that you're a fan of, even the sports that you're not a fan of. But March Madness, man, I mean, you just can't go wrong. I was talking about betting on college basketball with Bet365 when it was like January. I'm like, it's almost basketball. It's almost March Madness. Like, that's how excited I am. I will say I've made a little bit of money with Bet365, not as much as I have in the years past, just because it's been a pretty chalk tournament for the most part.
Yes, it has.
But with the Bet365 early payout, if your team goes up in basketball by 15 points or more, you win. Even if your team ends up losing that game, which the Nuggets, my God, you go up by 25 points and they still might lose that game. Totally. I mean, that's the crazy part of the NBA. But Bet365, they have you covered. Choose between either a bet and get offer by placing a bet of $5 or more, getting $150 back in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer by placing a bet of up to $1,000. If your qualifying bet loses, you receive a match refund in bonus bets using that code DNVR365 when you sign up. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Apparently, I have no problem reading that, but everything else is a bit of a struggle there. All right, back here on the Denver Sports Podcast, and we are we're having a good time here because we're talking championships, playoff window, all that good stuff about pretty much every single team except for the Colorado Rockies. This is the time of year where I think it's very much on display that every single team, and now including the Broncos in our Colorado sports world, is good except for the Rockies. And it's just disheartening, man. It's tough. You're wearing your Avs hat today, which I appreciate, but normally you got your Rockies, hat on. It's
every day. But I still show up and I still wear it.
You do. You did show up on the Rockies pod with us yesterday. Yeah. You rippled the water a little bit, caused some waves, but
I did cause some waves. Sometimes it's good. Waves are important. Some would say life is all about waves. All the things that go it's all just waves.
Isn't there a sports team called the Waves?
Gravity Waves.
It's like in Minnesota or something like that. San Diego Waves. Yeah, who knows? Anyways.
Yeah, Minnesota's lakes, it could have waves. Yeah, I mean, Rockies, 2023, I took the year off from the Rockies just because I needed a little mental health break.
You needed to go to therapy.
I didn't watch. I wasn't really going to games.
You went to Rockies
rehab. I don't know
rehab.
that I ever went to a game. There might have been one or two just because, but I was out on the Rockies. Last year I got back in.
Okay.
Very much in. Went
100
to
lost
whatever,
season
20
and Hank's back
games,
in.
watched the rest of them on TV, all that. And I'm just hoping that at some point this season we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I don't think the Rockies are far away from at least seeing the light. I think they're a long way from the light, but I do think that you could see like, hey, these young guys are playing well, or maybe there's like a 12-3 stretch when you get like Dollander's up there and he's dealing the bullpens, and you're like, okay, this is what they're going to look like when they're good, which might still be a couple years, but that's
you got high hopes, man.
Hopefully we can at least see the light. The light appears this year.
Well, we're seeing the light with our other teams. We're very much in the light with all of our other teams. We're feeling pretty good. Want to get to a question that Jonathan threw out there earlier in the chat.
Give us more questions.
Yeah, and like we were saying, this is pretty much a mailbag episode. We're doing a bunch of different topics, so
we need mail.
We need mail. I've got another one. Jonathan said, if the Nuggets don't win or get close this year, do they need to improve their bench or change their core? What do you think, Hank? Is this kind of I wouldn't say you revamp the entire roster because you still have incredible talent, but how much moves do the Nuggets need to make if they don't end up winning it all this year?
I would say in a perfect world, to me, they fix their bench. And they add 3 probably new guys who are now your bench 3. Everybody else can like rotate, compete for like regular season spots, but you have 3 guys that you say, this is probably our playoff rotation. Realistically, though, they haven't been able to add those guys in the past. Like when you just look at free agents, I mean, they're able to go get Russ last year, which he's probably been about what you expect, right? Like a lot of highs, a lot of lows. Whether that
for a guy of his age, I think that's fair.
Totally. And you have questions about the playoffs because
I honestly think some of the highs have been better than I expected. I didn't expect much out of him. I mean, so the fact that we've had some good games out of Russell Westbrook where he's made meaningful impacts was good for me.
I just don't know, without the ability to really trade anything, whether they're going to be able to sign 2 guys on cheap enough contracts to fix the bench and say, like, we've got a chance. And that's why I think most likely, if things don't go well, you get big changes. Whether it's GM, coach, whether it's Jamal, MPJ, maybe both.
Coach, that'd be huge.
And again, I love Michael Malone. I think he's a great coach.
Yeah.
But there is a part of me that believes some of the people who say, like, yeah, he just doesn't have the same impact anymore. And just a fresh voice might make some sense. And I don't think that that's the move I would make, but all of those moves would be hard to make. And so I don't know. Something will change.
I think the big question is going to end up being how deep are the Nuggets willing to go? I mean, obviously you're not getting rid of Jokic. That's the off limit. That's you're blacklisted. He's not going anywhere. But are you willing to get rid of MPJ? Are you willing to get rid of Jamal Murray? Are you willing to get rid of both? Is this one of those, you know what, we need to just redo everything and build again around Jokic? You've still got, God, I hope another 5+ premium years out of Jokic.
Yep.
He's 30 now, so,
don't waste him, though.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, what's your time window look like? Are you willing to say, you know what, we need to give maybe a 1-year quick rebuild year to get like some assets and get them ready to go, and then by 2026, 27 or 2027 we're ready to go? Like, how long are you willing to draw that out? There's a lot of questions though, because as Jonathan was saying, like, if you don't win this year, it becomes, well, why not? Why were we not able to do that? What's the resiliency pieces that need to go on? Does it need to be a coaching decision? Like, there's a lot that goes up in the air if the Nuggets don't make it, especially out of the first round.
And it's a really tough question to answer now.
Oh, there's so many pieces to it.
Once the season is over, I think the answers might be a little bit more clear. If say the Nuggets struggle down the stretch and they lose out in the play-in, well, yeah, I think Mike Malone is probably gone. Jamal Murray's probably gone. MPJ's probably, and you're probably just really redoing this whole thing. If you make it to the finals and you lose in 7 to the Celtics, yeah, maybe add a couple bench pieces and run it back. Hope for better health next year, whatever, growth from the young guys. Like, whatever happens, it isn't just going to be as simple as like, oh, they lost. It's going to be, oh, Mike really struggled on defense in both these series. We're able to survive the first one. The second one, we couldn't handle it. We just need an athletic wing there instead of just a pure sniper 3-point scorer. Or maybe it's Jamal isn't hitting his shots. He made 27% in the playoffs. It's like we just have to get off of that and change. So while it's really hard to answer now, all the things that happen over the course of hopefully the next like three months and not just like 1 month, it'll make the answers a lot more clear.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of information here from the Nuggets as they get going. And Kevin, going back to the Avs, Kevin in the chat makes an interesting point about, the whole situation with Landeskog coming back and that kind of thing. Like it really just does feel like the Avs are in line right now, whereas the Nuggets, you're looking for answers. You're looking for if we're not going to be the team this year, we need to make decisions for what it's going to look like next year. Or maybe this team looks great and, they're a championship team. Our guy Adam's walking in right now. I know he thinks, they've got what it takes, but it's just a matter of getting those answers coming up here soon. But
Landy's going to be back.
Landy is.
I think we're past
Landy's
it's not even a question anymore. I think it's been pretty clear all the things that are happening. If anybody in the chat wants to make a little bet on it, $100, I got you, because there's no betting odds, and I really wish there were.
For Landeskog coming back.
Landeskog will be back. Because again, it all adds up, because they wouldn't have been allowed to bring him back in the regular season.
Here's the follow-up to that, though. Yes, the fans are going to love that. We're all going to be through the roof when Landeskog skates out onto the ice again. From a player perspective, is it worth putting him back out there from an X's and O's, wins and losses, product on the ice? What kind of leash do we have with him? Like, is that the better move for the Avs, or is that more of a PR move for the team?
I think it's a good move. Again, you have to remember, so first of all, there's the sentimental, he is your captain. He is your leader. He led you to a Stanley Cup. All those qualities.
He's a good
are still
hockey
there.
player. Yeah.
And that's the other piece, is that that's an all-star hockey player. Now, how different of a player is he now? Does he only have the hands left and the skating ability? He isn't like what he used to be. It's not
Can
like he
he
was
take
ever
a hit
like
still?
crazy.
Yeah.
Is he still giving out all the hits he used to give out? Because he was an incredible two-way player. I mean, you would say you'd rather have Nate than Landy. You'd rather have Kale than Landy. But anybody else, I think you would take Prime Landy over anybody else on this team right now.
Of course. Are we going to get Prime Landy back?
And that's the thing. But you have to at least check.
Sure.
Because if you don't check, then you'll never know. And when you look down there at even bottom line tonight, it's supposed to be Parker Kelly and Logan O'Connor on the wings. You take Parker Kelly out for a game. You throw Landy in there. You say, this is our fourth line. You're going to be out there for 10 minutes. You'll at least get a decent read.
Yeah,
and if things go so badly that he takes 2 shifts and you say, oh, this isn't going to work, well, guess what? Nathan McKinnon is more than capable of double shifting for a game. Or you rotate that through, you do what you got to do.
There's the resiliency piece, though, for the Avs.
Exactly.
You feel like there's so much more there if you need it.
But I can't imagine the coaching staff saying, Landy, we think he's healthy enough to give it a run, but we just aren't willing to gamble on it. I think you have to take the gamble, because if he is, what if he does look like what he was before? Mm-hmm. And I don't think he will, but there's a possibility that all of a sudden
shades of it still works.
There's a chance that he's your best player, or wins the is it the Hart, not the Consummate. I hate that they name their trophies. Yeah. It's so much easier to remember. No, not that one. But there's a chance that he's just sitting there on the wing with McKinnon and he's just putting home goals in the Stanley Cup final, and all of a sudden you're saying hey, how did we consider not playing him?
Well, and Alyssa makes a great point in the chat. She says Landeskog has put in the work. He's earned the respect of his teammates and coaches. I also don't think he would put himself in this situation in the playoffs if he didn't think he at least had a shot. I think that second half of what she was saying is the kicker.
Yep.
Landeskog's a captain. He's a guy who's been around the league for a while. He knows the ropes. He's been he's won a Stanley Cup. He is a guy who's going to make sure he puts his team first. It's why he hasn't played this year. Yeah. I think you even when you talked to him at the beginning of the year, there were conversations of he could physically go out there and play right now, but he's just not ready yet, right? So him even just saying I'm willing to go out there, I'm willing to go fight for my team. I think that's enough for you as the coach to say, if I'm Bednar, put him out there, give him a shot, and see what it looks like.
Again, ever since November or so, the only way for Landy to come back was to come back in the playoffs. Because again, there's a salary cap in the NHL, and Gabriel Landeskog costs $7 million, and that doesn't count when he's on long-term IR. But if you wanted to bring him back for, say, the last month of the season, last 10 games of the season, you want to bring him back after tonight, you throw him in there, guess what? You've got cut $7 million of salary cap, and there's actually no way to do that even because we're past the trade deadline. If you want to do it before a trade deadline, that would have meant getting rid of really good players. No salary cap in playoffs, though, so boom. It's I think he's been ready to go, or they could have given it a run for a while now. But they knew that this was kind of the time to ramp up and get going for the playoffs, and I cannot wait for that to happen.
I know. I'm excited.
Because that could be the piece that puts them over the top.
It could be. And it also it's one of those things too. I mean, you've gone 2 years without seeing Landeskog playing in an Avs uniform. I mean, just to see him skate back out there, to be able to see him performing on the ice again. God, can you imagine playoffs come around? Just picture this. Playoffs come around. They're playing the Stars first round, Ball Arena. Landeskog makes his return, comes out on the ice, and scores a goal.
Yeah.
How electric. That would be top 5 all-time moments in Ball Arena.
Oh, yeah.
If that was to happen.
I'd be crying. I'll probably cry just when he skates out there, but I'd really be crying after that.
Yeah. Hank in tears is something you don't see very often, but you know.
I've got like 3 weeks left on my like pre-playoff diet, because I really got to cut some weight, because next thing you know, it's just beers and bar food or arena food. And
hey,
yeah,
we got a rooftop coming up.
We do have a rooftop.
We're going to talk about that in just a moment, because there is a really cool event that we're unveiling here at DNVR that I think you guys might want to be a part of. But I also want to talk about this playoff and championship window. How much longer are we going to see these two teams in a playoff and championship window? We'll touch on that here after we take this last break. All right, back here on the Denver Sports Podcast. Christian Saez, Henry Chisholm, Hank in the house with us. I want to give a shout out though, because this is something that we have coming up not too far away. It's a new event that we're working on. If you guys in the chat, if you know us at DNVR, we do takeovers, we do events, we do tailgates before Broncos games. Well, baseball season is right around the corner, whether you like the Rockies or not. And I understand if you don't. Rockies have burned a lot of fans in the recent years. But even besides that, it's still incredible to go out to Coors Field, not watch baseball, just hang out. I mean, we'll be watching baseball because we're degenerates.
Yep.
But even if you just want to go hang out, well, we're doing this new thing called the the Friday Rooftop Club. You see the graphic on your screen. We've got a couple dates throughout the year, starting on opening day. Basically, all this is, you don't have to pay for it like if you were going to a takeover for the Avs game and going to a suite or anything like that. You don't have to pay anything to us. All you got to do is grab a ticket, $5. Rockies tickets go for like $8 aside from opening day. It's super cheap. You get a ticket for the rooftop or for the rock pile, whatever, and you just come hang out with us. We're going to have the Avs guys out there, the Nuggets guys. Adam Mares, Harrison Wind, Rudo. I'm sure Eric Lacroix is going to be out there. It's just going to be good vibes. The Broncos, Zach Stevens. All of the DNVR folks. So again, even if you're not like a diehard Rockies fan by any means, it's still going to be a good time. We're going to be just drinking beers, $3 Coors Lights, or what is it? It's $3, right?
Before first pitch.
Yeah. $3 Coors Lights up there at the rooftop before first pitch. We're just gonna be hanging out, having a good time. So bring in the summer with us. Like I said, just be sure to check those dates out. All you got to do is grab a ticket and just come hang out with us. It's gonna be good times. Getting back to the conversation though, I wanted to ask the question of how long this championship window lasts, because it's hard to predict that. You were talking before the show about, studying economics, and it's hard to predict the future, right?
Yeah. Easy to interpret the past though.
But there's some metrics that you can look at. You can look at the age of the players and longevity. I would argue that just based on the sport alone, because hockey guys, you look at Wayne Gretzky, you look at Ovechkin, guys, Sidney Crosby, guys that play hockey well into their late 30s, 40s even.
Yep.
I would guess that the Avs have the potential for a longer playoff window than the Nuggets, especially because the Nuggets are on the precipice of, like you said, if you don't win or go to the championship this year, you might be kind of revamping your whole system.
Totally. Yeah. The Nuggets championship window lasts as long as Nicole is there. And maybe
that's a good
you
point.
get to the last 2 years and you say like, oh, this guy's not the same. But he also seems like the kind of guy who's going to be done playing when he's no longer he'll probably keep playing once he's not the best player in the league. But when he's not one of the 3 or 5 best, I don't think he's going to try to wait it out like LeBron. So I think, and that'll be a hard end. The only way around that is if we get to that point and say like, oh, Christian Brown, you're an all-star. You're getting MVP votes. And as much as I love Christian, that's not really the path that he's probably on. The same thing with Peyton Watson. It's just so tough to imagine them finding a way to sustain that.
And that's such an interesting point. You're right. There there's going to be some pretty tough retirements over the next 10 years for Colorado sports. I mean, again, you're going to at some point have Jokic that, God, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that he retires a Denver Nugget. I don't see any other way that doesn't happen. But, McKinnon, Makar, I mean, and again, some of these guys are young, so we have years and years before any of this happens. But it is just interesting to look at like where we are right now, the blessing of riches that we have as Colorado sports fans, the Broncos entering a playoff window. One of the questions I had thrown on here, and although we're not going to talk too much about it, is like, what's the ceiling for the Broncos look like this year? I think the Broncos could be in a championship window within 12 months, depending on the moves that they make. Depending on, how Bo Nix progresses in his sophomore season with the Broncos. Like, you could possibly have 3 teams performing in a championship window in the same season. Yeah.
And I would say the Broncos haven't opened their championship window yet.
No,
but typically what you say is the rookie contract is the championship window. So with 1 year down, you kind of got 3 years left. And then you can find ways to extend that, maybe 2 more years with crafty, cap work and all that sort of stuff. But really, you're looking at the upcoming 5 years as the window. But again, you have to open that window first. And maybe you open that by, I guess, starting like 5-0 this year. Be like, okay, here we are. The window is open. But to be is the question. You can see the end of the window, which again, if Bo Nix turns out to not be, just a top 5-10 quarterback and turns out to be, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, then all of a sudden the window is extended past that rookie contract. But based on NFL history, the quarterbacks who've made more than 12.5% of their salary cap, the only ones who've ever made a Super Bowl, I believe, are Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And that'll probably change at some point, just because so many, at this point, half of the league's quarterbacks are making more than 12.5%.
Yeah, I mean, we thought Jaden Daniels was going to be, could have been one of those guys this year.
Oh, exactly. So, at some point that threshold will kind of rise, but the key point being that, if you're getting quarterback money like half the league's quarterbacks do, odds are you're just not really going to have a chance unless you are the best in the sport. And maybe Bo does that and extends the window, or comes close and extends the window. But as of now, 5 more years, that's the end of the window. Just when can you open it? And with the Avs,
that's a good take.
With the Avs, Nathan McKinnon, when he retires, it isn't quite as hard and fast as the Nikola Jokic retirement that's the end of the window.
True.
You still have Cale Makar there. Like, how are you building the team up to that point? Can you overtake it? It's a little bit different when there's 12 plus 6 plus 1. There's 19 different players playing in every game instead of like 8.
Yeah.
But that probably is the end when Nate's gone. It is at least possible.
You and I have talked about this, the weight of value on certain players in different sports, right? The weight of a quarterback is different than the weight of, I don't know, your starting defenseman and your first line in hockey, right? Same thing with Jokic on the Nuggets, or your starting pitcher or whatever. It's weighted differently. Speaking of different players on different teams, though, we talked about doing a mailbag, and one of the questions I got on the socials from our friend Bronco Tiz, he said, if you could take one player or any player from one team and put them on another Colorado team, who would it be? And his example was, you take Jokic and you put him on a tight end or put him as a tight end on the Broncos, that type of thing. So take one Colorado player from one team and put them on another team and have them be relatively successful. Who do you think would be able to do that?
That's tough. So I would start by saying nobody's going to the NBA and being successful.
Well,
it's not.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
But it's hard to make that argument with any sport. I mean, no one's going to the NFL and being successful. No one's going to the NHL. Right. You're going to look weird no matter what.
Exactly. I think the best case for going to the NBA would be Cortland Sutton, who was on SMU's basketball team when he was playing football there, scored 3 total points during his basketball career. So if you score 3 total points at SMU,
more than any of us.
Totally. So shout out to those 3 points.
Yep.
He's not. He's a major liability he's point guard size in the NBA. He's smaller than Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
So I think that's the case. I don't think anybody's going to the NHL. No. Because that's just the skill set. I'd probably say
hockey is the hardest sport in my opinion. Absolutely.
I'd probably say the same about baseball, just because
It's technical. It's
Exactly.
hand-eye coordination.
I know, like,
yeah.
Zach Allen had kind of a tough decision to make in high school. Like, do I go football? Do I go baseball? But years later, I don't. He's struggling. I go Aaron Gordon to the Broncos. Put him at tight end.
Okay, I think
that's the one spot where there's at least a chance it works. Because I think he could block.
Yeah.
I think that he could.
He's a
go
pretty
get
strong
the ball.
dude. He could also bulk too.
Yeah.
Like you could bulk him up. He's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I don't know if his speed is there, but
we're missing Jamal Murray as a slot wide receiver. I think would be dope.
It's
He's
possible.
really good at catching that basketball from Jokic from like full court. I think him playing a slot, like quick little, he's like 6'4", big slot
He's
receiver.
6'5".
6'5", give or take. Like
I know, but again, like, have the Broncos ever in their history had a 6'5" receiver? Like, you just have to remember just how big these guys are.
How
And
big
I think it could work.
How big is Cortland Sutton?
6'4".
There you go.
It's close.
There you go. You can just put him outside. I think he
Yeah.
would be pretty good, honestly.
my pick again. I think you have to go between football. It's got to be between football and another sport.
Yep.
If Russell Wilson was still playing for the Broncos, you'd obviously put him on baseball.
Yep.
There is some overlap between guys who played baseball their whole life and then played football. I'm going Travis Hunter in the NBA.
Oh.
Travis Hunter is one of the most
okay.
athletic dudes I've ever seen play
Okay.
any sport. Travis is,
Travis
I mean,
is
he's
a good
included. Although, I mean, I guess, can you say he's not technically playing in a Colorado team anymore? But he was, and he hasn't been drafted yet, so he's still technically a member of CU, right?
Totally.
I'm going Travis Hunter in the NBA. I think you could put him out there, and he could be athletic enough to be a playmaker. Now, God, I don't know what his shot looks like,
Yeah.
because we all know how awkward it is for athletes to play another sport. But just from a sheer athleticism standpoint, I mean, have him be just a facilitator. Put him around the perimeter and have him just be setting screens and passing. That's enough for me. Travis Hunter could play in the NBA.
He's just so small.
I mean, sure.
Like, he's so look at Nuggets roster. Smallest player on the roster, 6'2", Jalen Pickett. Out there on the basketball court, Jalen Pickett looks tiny.
Yeah.
Travis is 6'1". So you go even smaller than that. And I get, like, Travis, great athlete.
Yeah.
You play him a whole season, there might not be a single minute he plays where he's not the shortest player on the court.
True. And we were talking about this because one of the other things we were talking about was, has this NCAA tournament been a bust this year? And, college basketball has just been kind of boring, like besides the CSU game. Harrison and I were talking about this. The difference between the NBA and college basketball is, like, in college basketball, you can get guys out there who are like 5'6".
Yeah.
And they're playmakers.
Yeah.
They're
Or
like
even
making
5'10".
shots,
Yeah.
right? Right. Like, you get some crazy short dudes out there. In the NBA, that just doesn't exist. Maybe in the old fashioned NBA with the Spud Webbs, I mean, those kind of play. Mike Bibby, even, right? Zach State's new head coach, by the way.
Like Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, like
But even
5'9",
him,
5'10".
He got hot for like 2 years and then was like, okay.
And it's such a hard path.
It was a fun little gimmick.
Oh, wait. What about Cortland Sutton playing point guard? He did play college basketball at SMU.
Again, but
He's 6'4". He could be a point
Well, that's
guard.
what he was saying.
6
He scored
foot
3
4.
points, though.
3 points his entire career. You put him in the NBA, it just doesn't work. Then
I think, right? 3 is enough, man. If you score 3 points in an NBA game, you are an NBA player.
But that's why I go Aaron Gordon at tight end. I think he can block. I think he could get up high and catch some passes. I think that I think there's a chance he's the best tight end in the NFL if he makes the transition. Again, there's no reason to do it because I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance.
If there was one professional sport you think you could somehow hold your own, which sport would it be?
But even then,
Really?
like,
Golf?
I go out there,
Holy shit,
like,
no way.
If I go out there and like I shoot like an 80 or something, well, guess what? Now I'm going to Augusta, so that's like a 105. That probably is the answer, just because it's not. At least it's not like football where I'd just be like physically like destroyed. Like I go out there for 4 plays as like a running back, and boom, there's the end of my life.
See, I played baseball in college, so I can't say baseball, but
Yeah.
I think soccer is one of the sports that I know I'd be terrible at. I know the reality of it. If I went out and played against Rapids players and stuff, like, I'd be awful. But I watch it, and I'm like, if I got in really good shape, it looks like I could hold my own out there. I feel like I could just, run and keep up, make a couple passes. I'm not putting anything in the net. but it's the naive sports take in me that I'm just like, I could do that.
Yeah, like I could be the guy who like, oh, the ball's over there, so I'm like over here just kind of like jogging around, not really.
Couldn't stand up on skates. No chance I play hockey.
Exactly. You're
Basketball,
just
I'm
play
5'11",
up the right
like
side.
no chance
I'll
I
just
play
kind of be
basketball.
like jogging around like those little soccer players. They always do their arms like this. They look like
Yeah. Golf, and I can't. I mean, there's no chance. Soccer has to be the easiest one to do, but it just like goalie.
Oof.
I mean, I'm 5'11". I don't know if I could do that, but I have no hops. Have you seen me jump? Get Marissa on the
Never.
show. She'll absolutely just destroy me in a hop competition. Oh yeah.
I don't think there's anything else. 'Cause I can't even imagine myself in the NBA. I don't even know what my best trait in the NBA would be. You know? Okay, yeah, giving out. But
You
if
could
I was
be the aura manager, dude.
because like imagine me trying to defend somebody.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I
no.
would.
They
it
would
be
and they would
terrible.
embarrass you too.
Imagine
like
me
the
like-
ball handling, dribbling skills. Just
Everybody on the court would have like 6 inches on me, so there's no way I'm ever getting a shot up.
yeah,
Ugh.
it's tough. All right, we're wrapping things up. We're at 1:15. Thank you guys for hanging out in the chat. Appreciate the lively conversation. Avs and Nuggets winning a championship. That's all we got to say about this one. Shout out to Dion and Yaya for producing. We'll see you guys next time right here on the Denver Sports Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.